Hi everyone, let's join in prayer today. Are you walking through that desolate, terrifying spiritual desert, that place the mystics call the dark night of the soul, where God feels a million miles away? Your prayers seem to hit a brass ceiling, and every familiar comfort of His presence has inexplicably vanished, leaving you in a shocking, bewildering silence. You cry out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Psalm 22 verse 1, and the silence itself feels like a crushing answer. This isn't just a bad day or a spiritual slump, it's a profound, disorienting crisis of faith where the very foundations of your belief are shaken, and you secretly wonder if you've committed some unpardonable sin or if God has simply given up on you. But what if I told you that this harrowing darkness, this agonizing sense of divine abandonment, is not a sign of God's displeasure or His absence, but a deeply misunderstood, sacred, and often terrifying invitation to a far more profound end. Unshakable union with Him. This isn't punishment, it's a hidden, divine process, a severe mercy designed to draw you beyond the shallow waters of a faith dependent on feelings and into the oceanic depths of a faith that clings to God for who He is, even when you feel nothing. The dark night is a critical, often secret, sign that God is taking you seriously, that He desires to purify your love for Him from all self-interest, from the spiritual candy of consolations, so that you love Him for Himself alone, not just for His gifts. This is a dangerous, transformative path, because it involves the stripping away of everything you thought you knew about God and your relationship with Him. It's a refiner's fire, as Peter describes in 1 Peter 1 verse 7, meant to burn away the dross of your imperfections, your false securities, and your spiritual ego, leaving behind a faith that is pure, resilient, and genuinely your own. The shocking truth is that many chosen for deeper intimacy with God must navigate this bewildering terrain. You might find that spiritual practices which once brought immense comfort now feel barren and lifeless. The scriptures may seem like dead letters, and the community of faith may offer no solace. This is the painful work of God detaching your soul from reliance on sensible consolations, forcing you to walk by naked faith, not by sight or feeling. 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7. Understand this critical insight. The darkness itself can become the very place of His most profound revelation. It seems paradoxical, even cruel, but God often meets us most powerfully not in the dazzling light of spiritual ecstasy, but in the thick, impenetrable darkness where our own strength and understanding fail us completely. Remember, Exodus 20 verse 21 tells us that the people stood far off, while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. And King Solomon declared at the temple's dedication, "The Lord has said that He would dwell in thick darkness." 1 Kings 8 verse 12. Could it be that this perceived absence is actually a different mode of His presence, one that your spiritual senses, accustomed to more obvious manifestations, are not yet equipped to discern? This is where you learn that God is still God, even when He is silent, even when His face is hidden. It's in this void, this apparent emptiness, that He is secretly hollowing you out to make more room for Himself, to teach you that He is the ground of your being, the very air you breathe, even when you are gasping in the dark. This is a divine warning against mistaking the absence of feeling for the absence of God. He hasn't left you. He is teaching you a new language of faith, one spoken in the silence, in the waiting, in the unwavering trust that He is good even when your circumstances scream otherwise. Your job in this season is not to conjure up feelings of God's presence, but to cling to the truth of His character revealed in His Word, to trust His unfailing love. Lamentations 3 verses 22 to 23. Even when every fiber of your being feels abandoned, this darkness forces a brutal honesty. stripping away all pretense and revealing the true state of your heart. It's here you confront your hidden idols, your deepest fears, and your desperate need for control. And it's here, in that raw vulnerability, that God does his deepest work, cultivating a humility and dependence that an easier path could never produce. The journey through the dark night is also a profound lesson in stillness and waiting, two spiritual disciplines utterly countercultural in our instant gratification world. Psalm 46 verse 10 whispers the divine command, "Be still, and know that I am God." But how do you remain still when your soul is in turmoil, when the darkness presses in from all sides? This stillness isn't passivity, it's an active, often agonizing, surrender. It's a conscious choice to stop striving, to cease your frantic efforts to fix your spiritual state or force God's hand, and instead to simply endure, to wait in the darkness with a flicker of hope that dawn will eventually break. This waiting has a hidden purpose. It stretches your soul, deepens your capacity for God, and teaches you the invaluable lesson of perseverance. It's in this prolonged waiting that your spiritual roots are forced to go deeper, anchoring themselves not in the shifting soil of emotions but in the bedrock of God's unchanging nature. Think of Job, stripped of everything, sitting in ashes, yet ultimately able to say, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." Job 13 verse 15. That is the cry of a soul refined in the dark night. This period is also a secret invitation to cultivate a listening heart. When the familiar voices of spiritual consolation are silenced, you are compelled to listen more intently for the subtle whispers of the Spirit, for the guidance that comes not through overwhelming feelings but through a quiet knowing, a gentle nudge, or the timely word of a fellow traveler. The enemy will try to use this darkness to convince you that you are alone and that your faith is a fraud. He will amplify your doubts and fears. But this is a warning: do not believe his lies. Instead, arm yourself with the promises of God, recall his faithfulness in your past, and cling to the testimony of those who have navigated this darkness before you and found God faithful on the other side. Ultimately, the shocking blessing of the dark night of the soul is the emergence of a faith that is virtually indestructible, a love for God that is profoundly purified, and an intimacy with him that transcends the merely emotional. You will not be the same person you were before. The superficialities will have been burned away, replaced by a quiet strength, a deep compassion for others who suffer, and an unshakable peace that comes from having met God in the very heart of darkness and found him utterly sufficient. You will discover a hidden wellspring of resilience you never knew you possessed, forged in the crucible of silent suffering and unwavering trust. Romans 8 verse 28 isn't just a platitude, it becomes a lived reality, that God truly does work all things together for good for those who love him, even the terrifying darkness. Your capacity to experience God's light will be exponentially greater because you have intimately known the darkness. Your joy will be deeper, your peace more profound, precisely because you have journeyed through the valley of the shadow of death and learned that he was with you, his rod and his staff comforting you in ways you couldn't have understood in perpetual daylight. Psalm 23 verse 4. This path is not for the faint of heart, but it is for those whom God is calling into a deeper, more authentic, and powerfully transformative union with himself. If you are in this place, take courage. You are not lost, you are on a sacred, though painful, journey. Cling to the faintest glimmer of faith, trust in the unseen hand of God, and know that this night will not last forever. Morning will come, and with it, a revelation of God's love and presence more profound and enduring than you ever dared to imagine.